Okay, welcome to part two, everyone. As you will have heard, we went through the news in part one. We talked a lot about Centilli and their 10th anniversary and what are Centilli all about this year. Conversational commerce, clearly, and the move from subscription to a subscription economy to paid. From a paid economy to a subscription economy. But following on from the conversational commerce idea as it being a route to market, we don't normally talk about people moving from one company to another. It's the news for all the other outlets. We don't really cover that stuff. But our good friend Joanna Lacey has now left Mobile Ecosystem Forum, and I was just trying to track her down, and it turns out that she has gone to strengthen the team at a company called AddinMo. Now, what is interesting about that, you may ask, Paul? Well, I'll tell you, because we are talking about the disruption of the media market. We're talking about new ways to reach Gen Z and millennials, because they don't tend to be watching traditional TV anymore. And of course, conversational commerce and messaging is a route to market, but as is, funnily enough, in-game advertising. Not a surprise. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I think this is going to be something big in 2021. And I think the fact that Joanna has gone there is testament to that fact. Now, if you look at AddinMo, they're an interesting company. So they've got a range of free games: casual, action, puzzle, arcade, fashion, and sports. And what they do is within the sort of fabric of the game, in the same way as of the real world, you can then put your branding on various aspects of the game. It's click free, so it doesn't interfere with the gaming experience, but it does allow advertisers to get access to a whole new mobile audience in very much the same way as you would have done in sort of traditional ways. And I just feel as though there's you should check it out. There's some very good case studies where there's sort of drinks manufacturers are using it. Meowtel, a cat sitting app, and Parade Media, funnily enough, a TV distributor. Because they realize that the people that are playing the games are not their traditional viewers. And so it's one of the best ways that they can actually get their brand in front of the millennials and the Gen Zs. So I wanted to just talk about that in terms of, how we are going to see merchants and advertisers and ad agencies helping brands and anyone with a premium or value-added service proposition get their message, or open up new routes to market through new media channels that you perhaps wouldn't necessarily have thought of as being traditional media in the past. And I think that's going to be an interesting area for us.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, games have sort of become more and more sort of important to what we cover. But I think sort of if you look at the sort of wider digital world, games are becoming really important to sort of everything from sort of retailers to TV and media companies. I think, like you say, millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, whoever, they're all, their life's like a bit of a game to them, really. Everything is done through the medium of games. And I think you're going to see games playing a role in pushing marketing, because it's now just, that's where you advertise. Why would you advertise on TV? No one watches TV. They all watch streaming services, or I do at least. I think most people increasingly do. But people are playing games, so that's where you stick the ad. So it's it's sort of naturally just shifting to that as a new medium. I think you're going to increasingly see things like what we does here with our podcasts will become an advertising medium, because that's where the eyeballs are. And I think sort of you are going to start to see more commercialized uses of Zoom and those sorts of things. So I think we're going to be in an interesting sort of fragmentation of, well, not even a fragmentation, it's just a realignment of where messaging goes. I think sort of things like RCS. I mean, RCS's sort of shtick is that it is going to do is going to take away marketing advertising budget, because it can put it straight in front of people through a message that they can actually then buy something directly from. And we've closed the circle neatly there and come back to conversational commerce. So I think that's the key thing. I think what's going to be more interesting is things like advertising in games isn't just going to be popping up annoying banners and interstitials in games, but it's going to start to be that those messages are engaging messages that then take you to something that you can actually buy from. So I think that's that's probably why Joanna has gone to work for AddinMo. Is the potential there for sort of bringing together messaging and gaming, and then payments and all the rest of it is it's the new world order. It's where it's all heading, and it won't just be in games. That sort of idea will be in all sorts of other sort of digital mobile properties.
Yeah, and I think we'd like to extend our best wishes to Joanna in her new job. And, we look forward to hearing more from her in the coming months. Now, we've sort of lurched into the world of predictions, and so what better way of segueing into the next section, which is that we were very interested to see Docomo's predictions for 2021. This comes from Jonathan Kriegel, who's the CEO of Docomo Digital. This guy knows what he's talking about as well. He did a fantastic keynote presentation at Carrier Billing Summit last year, and we're hoping to get him involved in Telemedia 8.1 at some point this year. We'll just whistle through the predictions and bullet points because obviously we don't want to take up too much of people's times. But in essence, these are the key points that he brought up. Interestingly, just following on from the previous point, new industries, he sees gamification of education, Paul, as being something that will be something to watch out for. So that combines two of your favourite topics right there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think sort of... I used a few limited examples a moment ago, but I think you are going to see this sort of gamification of everything, and games being an advertising platform for everything as well. So, I mean, an education, of course, is going to go down that route. I mean, a lot of educational apps and things are already sort of gamified for kids. It's quite where do you start advertising in them as well? That's So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So the next one was carrier billing to grow exponentially. We don't really need to talk too much about that because I think probably every news story that we put out would support that view. And the landscape is changing to the point where carrier billing is becoming the de facto or the most obvious way of paying for stuff, and not least because the third point is that it's frictionless, and that helps drive engagement and loyalty. It's interesting to see point 4. It's interested and sad because, of course, there's the second acronym of the year, APM, alternative payment methods. I'm happy to use all three of those words. I like them all.
I don't think we need to acronymize alternative payment methods. That's just a thing. That's
really not
the sentence. I think we won't be using APMs. But yes, alternative payment methods and e-wallets. Yeah. I think this is part of the carrier billing idea as well, and the frictionless payment experience. Carrier billing is just one of the APMs, if you will. And I think that, as we discovered years ago with sort of mobile gambling services, the more payment types you offer, the more chance people are going to spend money. I think the same is going to apply across everything now.
Yeah. And the point was made there, of course, that people are keen to not use cash anymore. So that is obvious. Moving on, OTT media is here to stay. We've already talked a lot about that, so I don't think we need to say too much about that. Interestingly, the next point, bundling and partnerships, perfect for DCB, digital services and telecoms providers. And I know that Docomo, middle of last year, put out an excellent white paper, which again can be found in the white paper section of Telemedia Online, which talks about how telecoms operators and content providers are bundling their services together, and the suggestion being that partnership is going to be a big driver in the coming year for more digital services and more mobile payments, and a point following on for that, merchants to turn to direct carrier billing specialists. Now that was a good one because I think we've seen and been sort of pushing that message for some time that the aggregators are the ones that bring telco services and telco technology together with brands and consumers, and that specialist, that relationship that they've got on both sides is pretty unique, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think as well with those carrier billing specialists joining forces and bundling offerings with people with content and marketing and messaging and OTT messaging. That is the name of the game, and it does bring us back to this idea of things being offered as sort of either as a service as a platform. You can pick and choose the bits you want, or you go to a provider who has these partnerships who can and plug all of this in to you straight away. So you can see a lot more, sort of corporates, I think banks, retailers, all those sorts of people turning to these telemedia players who have strong partnerships with those that can bring them the content, the gamification idea, the games, the advertising, the messaging, to create the services, because they need to do it quickly, and that's how to do it quickly.
The final point was new financial services regulation to keep DCB in the micropayment space. This sort of felt a little bit like a sort of slightly negative point, although we would argue that the micropayment space is potentially enormous, and it's getting bigger all the time. But having said that, I know that talking to a couple of PSPs myself, in particularly in Europe, where I know that the relationships with the incumbent telcos are such that they certainly are feeling as though they're in a position to offer 30-40 euro payment price points for the sale or of real physical goods. So I don't quite know whether or not whether that's outside of that point, or whether or not you see that as being something that is going to really take off in 2021 or not.
Well, I mean, these things that are sort of regulated, particularly by sort of Euro regulations, will take years to actually get anywhere. I think the pressure will come for consumers who want to spend, 30, 40, 50 plus euros on digital only stuff, first of all, might sort of force a rethink in how they deliver it or how they regulate what is classed as a micropayment. So I think carrier billing, might be sort of restricted in some ways to micropayments, but I suspect what constitutes a micropayment might sort of expand. As to the physical goods thing, we've been talking about it for years. There are sort of ways around it to sort of make it work. I think if there's a hunger amongst consumers for it, then it could do. But I doubt we're going to. Well, no, I'm not going to say I doubt we'll see it in 2021, because we might. Things keep changing so rapidly. But I think that's more of a longer term gain. I mean, what might be interesting to see is what the now no longer EU regulated UK market might do.
It's the second time you've mentioned that, Paul, and I'm sure that our European listeners are switching off in their droves.
No, not at all. I was very sad on at midnight on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day to see it sort of like breaking away from the European Union. I think we lose a lot by it, but you've got to sort of be positive. There might be different ways of doing things, and one thing about the EU is somewhat bureaucratic, so possibly I think if anyone is serious in government in the UK about making our economy sort of grow and be stronger and benefiting from Brexit, they need to start thinking differently about what we can and can't do. I don't think we should open it up to being like a mad wild west of like anything goes. I think you need to they have a golden opportunity to change how we regulate things in the face of the world having changed so dramatically. So, I'm trying to be optimistic in 2021 that something good will come of the pandemic and Brexit, rather than it being a complete and utter sort of fiasco where lorry drivers have their sandwiches taken away by the Dutch authorities.
Well, and talking about doing things differently, and the ever-present COVID-19, it does seem as though face-to-face meeting opportunities are going to still be restricted throughout the coming year. That's my prediction, which makes the Telemedia 8.1 platform all the more important. If you don't know, it's where all of the telemedia industry are gathered, and they all have searchable profiles. You can go in there, register for free. You can search according to the services or markets that interest you, and you can filter out all the exhibitors and all the premium subscribers that fit your requirements, and you can click on their profile and contact them directly. Now, Paul, I just wanted to just welcome and announce the 3 new exhibitors that we've got on the platform: Olimob, Muff Digital, wonderfully named Muff Digital, and we're going to get some we'd like some t-shirts.
We'd like some t-shirts, please, Muff Digital.
And the wonderful Wales.
You could be advertising here.
Yeah, absolutely. So these 3 now. What was it? Again, if you look, they're Olimob and Muff Digital, both ad agencies, and Whale Telecom and aggregator carrier in the IPRN space. Just interesting to see that the Telemedia 8.1 exhibition has already got more ad agencies into it. And when we're talking about the media landscape fragmenting and how difficult it's going to be to use all of the different routes to markets and find all the right traffic and engage all the right customers, specialists like this are going to become more and more important. So I don't think it's any surprise. So please go to the website www.telemedia8.1.com, and if you search on ad monitoring, advertising apps, carrier billing, mobile traffic, VAS, IPRN, PRS, SMS, you will find those three companies and many, many more. And so we would urge you to do that. And the more people use the platform, the more valuable a resource it will be for the industry as a whole. So leaving it at that, the final thing, and finally, Paul, you're going to be working your little tail off over the next 6 weeks to
Absolutely.
put together the upcoming issue of Telemedia Magazine. I'm going to give you some dates that you need to work to. We'd like some editorial by the 12th of Feb. If you'd like to advertise in the magazine, please get in touch with me by the 9th of February. The issue will be out. We used to come out round ready for Mobile World Congress, but we don't need to worry about that this year. So it'll be out around about the second week of March. Paul, who do you want to hear from? What do you think we're going to be talking about in this first issue of the year?
Well, first, what we're going to be talking about, I mean, I think I don't want it to be cheesy as the first one of the year, looking at what 2021 has in store, but I think the sort of working title, the theme I'm giving it this issue is the 2021, the year of total telemedia, because I think, based on all the things we've spoken about in this and our previous podcasts, that it's all coming together into this sort of kind of joined up offering, and so we're going to pick through those things. So we're going to be looking at what is happening with carrier billing, how that is going to grow, what these issues are with micropayments and how it may or may not be limited to that, what some of the payment disruptors might be that are out there that aren't just carrier billing, but what else we might find that are alternative payment mechanisms. Because while I'm a big advocate of direct carrier billing, I think we should be also looking at all the other ways of paying, because I think they're going to offer some really sort of interesting ways of creating new services. We're going to look at messaging and engagements part in the whole conversational commerce route, particularly what RCS does. 2021 is probably going to be the year of RCS. We're also going to look at personalization, whether there's still a role for personalization in the conversational commerce era. And we'll also be looking at, as we've discussed earlier, about gaming and media and content and that sort of fragmented market there for advertising, and how these sort of services are starting to be the sort of place where advertising and marketing takes place, and what that advertising and marketing looks like, because it's not just going to be banner ads and things, it's going to involve messaging. So we'll be exploring that. We're also going to take a look at the Latin American market, because there's been some big developments in that over 2020, and it's sort of leapt ahead as like one of the most sort of developing regional markets. So I think that's worth a particular focus. I'm also going to take a look at my pet subject du jour of educational technology and where that's heading, and I'm also going to probably touch on health and well-being as well, and what the opportunities are there. So I'd like to hear from anyone who's involved in any of that. Particularly keen to talk to some of our ad agency clients that are doing Telemedia 8.1. I should be listening to their presentations, but I want to hook up with them and have a chat with them, because I think their perspective is going to help set the agenda for the telemedia companies as to what they should be offering these people. So anyone who's got anything interesting or done anything interesting, or even your own views as to what you think 2021 has in store, would be most warmly welcomed.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, mate. Looking forward to that. So listen, thank you very much for spending some time with me. And thank you to everyone out there who's listening. I would just say as a footnote to that, now is the time to advertise with the limited options to get out there at the trade shows. So media has never been more important. And apart from anything else, the more advertising we get, the more time we can spend putting this together and writing, covering the stories that matter. So we do rely on your support, and thank you to everyone that does currently, but we can always do with more. So do get in touch with me if you are interested in advertising or getting your PR out or looking at the whole range of marketing services that we can now offer you. And please get in touch with Paul if you've got any good news stories to tell or any additional information that might help him put together a red hot feature, and you might even get a name check as a result. So let's leave it at that. We've gone on way too long, but it's the first one of the year, so we get apologies for our enthusiasm. Next week we will we'll join us again next time, and until then, see you later, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you too, mate. Take care. Stay well. Stay hairy. Goodbye, everybody. Also, stay well and hairy.